Houston's number one priority should be getting better up front. That said, which player should Houston target in the 2026 free agent period, and who be good backup plans?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Fun show lined up. I think it's time for us to dive a little bit into an early look at free agents Houston should target. I'm going to look at centers. I'm going to look at guards today and look at why those players make sense from a schematic standpoint and also from money standpoint. Like, these things have to match up for Houston and Nick Caserio, which we know he'll tell you quickly, what is the value compared to the market? And for some of these players, Houston, it may feel like Houston needs to go with market over value, maybe in another position, value over market. So I'm excited to talk about that today. Also, we're going to close out just the biggest lesson learned in 2025. I think that'll be a great conversation. And I want you guys to tell me in the comment section on YouTube or hit me up on social media, what do you think the Houston Texans' biggest lesson that they learned this year? Or from a fan perspective, what was your biggest lesson learned in 2025 in terms when it comes to your Houston Texans? But I want to shout out my everydayers from the Himalayas for making Locked On Texans your first listen of the day, for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and for constantly coming back to listen to myself, your credentialed media member and football analyst, John Hickman, as I dive into guarding your heart. Who's the heart? CJ Stroud right now is the heart of the offense, right? If he plays better, then we're having a different conversation, right? He's in the Super Bowl. Well, what were some of the things that transpired the last time we saw the Houston Texans play football? Number one, offensive lineman getting knocked in the backfield 3-4 yards. Can't have that, right? Okay. And who was the main culprit of that? Jake Andrews. He had a rough outing against Milton Williams, Christian Barmore. I think it's time for us to have the conversation that I think we're past, honestly. Getting an upgrade at the center position, and that's the number one priority for Houston. And as I've said before, upgrading the interior offensive line should be the focus this offseason. But the plan needs to be precise with an understanding that Houston needs proven interior offensive linemen that have a body of work to show that can be a plug and play and immediate impact for the run game. The Texans' run game in 2025, this, kind of goes back into that Patriot game, but all together, 29th in rushing success rate, 25th in yards before contact per rush, 27th in stuff rate. The number that should concern everybody, but really shows where the fatal flaw is and why Houston needs to bring in real body movers. 1.9 yards per rush in the red zone, 0.9 yards per rush inside opponent's 10. They were abysmal in the red zone. They were even worse when they got down inside the 10-yard line. All right, Titus Howard talked about Houston needing to be better in short yardage situations, and the key to that is getting players who are already good in those situations, right? And let's look at center. Everybody's favorite right now, Tyler Linderbaum. Number 2 for me, guys, Cade Mays, Carolina Panthers, right? Both players instantly upgrade the offensive line from a center standpoint. Both drastically solve Houston's short yardage woes. Both are experienced. Both block for 1,000-yard rushes. And here is what most of you will love. Both should give Houston the flexibility to be more diverse with the run scheme that's ran here in Houston. Linderbaum for the Ravens last season, 257 zone runs compared to 157 gap runs. Mays for the Panthers, 215 zone, 167 gap. Houston last season, 187 zone compared to 200 gap. Like, and I think a lot of what we were looking at last year was the offensively challenged woes that allowed Houston or did not allow Houston to kind of open up their playbook to the fullness, right? Guys, one of the most challenging things to do as a center is zone block. Both of these players excel in zone blocking. Both have the IQ for what zone blocking is asking of them. And because of this, based on the mixture of runs, this would give Houston two guys that they should target. You can bring them in. We need the zone run in this spot. Well, right now we need to do a gap power run in this spot. They've shown the ability to do that at a very, very high level. A very high level. Cade Mays, I think he may be a little bit younger than Linderbaum, or they may be around the same age, but what he was able to do in Carolina last season, honestly, in my opinion, a little bit more impressive than Tyler Linderbaum. I mean, you feel like Derrick Henry can work with anybody, right? Doesn't take away what Linderbaum was able to do because he's absolutely the number one center on the market this free agent class, and it's a gap between everybody else. He's going to command that money. But you look at how those two players mix with the Houston Texans to close out the year. From Kansas City through the regular season game, the final regular season game, Houston 69 zone runs compared to 48 gap runs. Houston made the transition. They need guys to sustain the transition and where the philosophy wants to take them. Plus, the Ravens rushed for 5.6 yards per carry towards the center on each side of the ball. The Panthers 4.1 on each side of the ball combined. You also look at the short yardage improvements that these players can help the Houston Texans out with. The Ravens average 4.5 yards with 1 to 2 yards to go, 4.8 with 3 to 6 yards to go. The Panthers, 3 yards per carry, 1 to 2 to go, 4.5 in both categories. Listen, this is just the smart thing to do for Houston. It's absolutely the smart thing to do for Houston. And where it gets complicated for Nick Caserio, that front office staff, they got to figure this out, right? Like, we can like the players all we want, but one player cannot break the bank. And Houston is in a little tight squeeze. They're going to have to start doing some restructuring. I talked about it on the Monday show. So they're going to have to be smart. And where the issue comes in, again, they got to create their salary cap. Being smart and intentional is key for this free agency. Linderbaum is projected to make $17.5 or more this offseason. Mays is projected to command nearly in the ballpark of $12 million. Given Houston's situation, it would be smarter for Houston, realistically, to target Mays a little bit more. Panthers are going to have a hard time re-signing him. I did a lot of research, and they just got too many guys over there, right? Now, they could prioritize him, but what does that leave with the rest of the offensive line and that offensive room altogether? And from what I've heard from several people, whether it be reading or talking with, Mays, his presence does a lot for Bryce Young. Bryce Young has played his best with him at center. Mays could bring that same impact to the Texans for C.J. Stroud. Here's also a name I want you guys to just keep in mind, right? And this is also a unit that many said was the best offensive line unit in the NFL last season, this prior season that we're currently in, technically. The Buffalo Bills. Connor McGovern. Very balanced run game background from Buffalo this past season. And again, the trust that you bring over a player like Connor McGovern, who's blocked for James Cook, who's blocked for Josh Allen, like, you plug him into this mix, look at the trust that could possibly give Nick Kelly to open up the full playbook. A super smart player, made the switch from guard to center, rarely gets walked back, so that leads to a lack of potentially negative plays for the future. He's projected in between what both Mays and Linderbaum is currently projected. That also is a player, when we look at backup plans, he could make sense. He has a playoff pedigree. He has a resume as well. He's a player that has seen it all, right? When you look at how defense is trying to stop both Josh Allen and James Cook, whoever's up front in the middle has seen it all. And I like Connor McGovern a lot. And so if I'm being honest, I like the McGovern and Mays a little bit more than Tyler Linderbaum. Not because they're better than Tyler Linderbaum. That's not the case at all. But both of those guys, I think, would allow for Houston to, at the very least, not have to financially commit to one player and have to take a chunk of their salary cap. But if you're asking me, I think Mays is the way to go. McGovern after that. But if this was a perfect world, Linderbaum would be blocking for whoever's at running back and C.J. Stroud next season, if this was a perfect world. But it's not a perfect world. Lastly, on McGovern, I think, or all of these players, I think each of these players give Houston the advantage from a center spot, a clear upgrade. With my personal opinion being in short yardage situations, Mays give Houston the most value for dollars. Keep that in mind. Mays gives Houston the most value for dollars because, again, Houston still needs to address other positions like guard. That's where this conversation is going to pivot over to. I can't sit here and say you don't draft the offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds and not have a plan for that. I believe Houston should target a guard in this free agency class. And some of the names may surprise you, but just hear me out on this. There's logic behind it. More Locked On Texans talk when we return. Before we dive into that conversation, ladies and gentlemen, Texas fans across the nation, there's nothing like being in an NBA arena. And I'm going to tell y'all something, Rockets fans, they need more of us at these games to help with the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, I understand. That part has not been always so simple. That's why GameTime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans, with us. We control it now, right? We all love control. GameTime gives us the control back. Zone deal stood out. You choose a section, GameTime picks the seats, and you save more money. Also, being able to see your view from the seat before buying made the decision easier for me, and it'll make the decision easy for you. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with GameTime. Right? It's simple. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download GameTime today, and remember, it's GameTime.co, not .com. Also, Texas fans, let's go ahead and pivot into how you can continue to make not only the NBA season, but the rest of the NFL season, which is dwindling down. Exciting. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding the underdog, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everybody's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from a kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Hey, I don't know about y'all, man, but Shador made it to the Pro Bowl. They skipped a lot of quarterbacks, and you kind of gotta ask yourself, like, how many quarterbacks did they skip? No Trevor Lawrence. And I'm saying that because no CJ Stroud. Was this one of those things where the competitor in the quarterback said, I didn't earn it, so I'm not going to go grab it? Or is this just another disappointing turnout and how a sad history of how the Pro Bowl has become just a joke a little bit, where players are not taking it seriously and it's not being taken seriously altogether. This could have very well been something that CJ maybe was like, if it was presented to him, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to take time away from the game, get myself right, and then focus on the actual game that matters. Same with Trevor Lawrence, any of these other quarterbacks. But Shador Sanders did make the Pro Bowl. You do with that information as you like. We continue to look at players Houston Texans should target, and right now I'm focusing on guards. David Edwards, Buffalo Bills. Teven Jenkins, Cleveland Browns, formerly of the Chicago Bears. Elijah Vera Tucker. Now, hear me out, guys. Okay? Keep in mind, this is why I like Mays a lot. If Houston opts to target and consign Tyler Linderbaum, that's going to put a little bit of a strain on what they could do with addressing the guard spot. or any other positions. Like I said, Tyler Linderbaum, he's a 17-5 and up guy right now. And with that being said, I think targeting Tyler Linderbaum and both Tyler Linderbaum and David Edwards, that's going to be tough. David Edwards right now is projected. Things could change, of course. But David Edwards right now is projected to make between $15 and $20 million in free agency. Right? That's a lot to combine with Edwards and Linderbaum. That said, I like Teven Jenkins a lot for Houston. I like him a lot. Don't let the injury scare you, right? He played and featured in he suited up for all 16 games, 2025. He finished the 2025 season for the Browns playing a significant role, averaging 46 snaps in the final 6 games. In his appearances, 0 sacks allowed, 2 pressures a game during that final stretch. A big physical blocker who has shown improvement as a pass blocker in the NFL. And he's a strong anchor. You look at his pass protection, strong anchor, physical, powerful run blocker, versatile across the offensive line. But this isn't this shouldn't be a Titus Howard situation where it's tackle, left guard, right guard. It should not be one of the availability is an offensive lineman's best ability. He was healthy this season. He was healthy. And when the Browns put him out there on the field, he did a very good job. I think what I was more impressed with is just his ability to pass block, right? But he is still a body mover. You put a body in front of him, he's going to be able to move it. Also, guys, he's 6'6", 325. That's a big dude. He's a big dude. He matches whatever scheme you want to put him in. All right, zone, gap. Again, the value that you're going to see out of Teven Jenkins above all, in my opinion, is his ability to be able to pass block. He passes off stunts well, right? He's able to pick up blitzes well. I think he does an exceptional job of keeping his head on a swivel, and this will allow for any of that interior gap pressure on the inside that we can see simulated from defensive coordinators and opposing defenses. He's done a very good job of picking up some of those guys, late or leaky or however you want to look at it. I like Teven Jenkins, and I think this is more so the upside for it. You get Teven Jenkins on one of those tier 2 contracts that Nick Caserio typically likes to sign the non-star names, right? You have tier 1 where you get 3-year, tier 2 you get the 2-year. That puts Houston in a window where the next 2 years you have that young player under contract. There's flexibility with that contract as well. And you're not tied to him long term. And one thing about Houston, if you play good football, if they sign you to a short deal and you play past that, you play past the expectation, play up or pass it or over, Houston will bring you back. He's still young. Teven Jenkins right now is 26. He'll be 28 when the season starts. Not a lot of tread on the tires. I think he's a player that if we sit back and look at some of the things that Houston needs help with, he could fit that while also not breaking the bank. And a combination of Teven Jenkins and a Cade Mays for 21-5, 23-5, like things like that gives Houston, I think, a full restructured offensive line. You also look at bringing back Ed Ingram. That gives Houston real flexibility. That gives Houston the opportunity to do something similar to what the Chicago Bears did last offseason. Proven playmakers up front, proven body movers up front, proven guys that have shown the ability to create space for running backs and protect the quarterback. Case in point, I look at what the Chicago Bears did from 2024 to 2025. What was the biggest difference? The biggest difference, when I look at the Chicago Bears, obviously they hired Ben Johnson. Shout out to my boy Bear. Yes, I know they hired Ben Johnson. That's great. But they invested in the offensive line. Traded for Jonah Jackson. Got Joe Thuney. The center, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. That led to 2024, 68 sacks. 2025, 24 sacks. That led to nearly 40-yard increase on the ground. And they did it by not signing guys like Laken Tomlinson. That's how they did it. All interior guys. That's how Houston needs to attack this free agency. Get better on the inside. That kind of leads me to the biggest lesson learned in 2025. I do want to say this. David Edwards, I think, is very good, reliable, a little bit older. I think he'll be 31 when the season starts. But he played a major role in that offense, being one of the best offensive linemen, being one of the best offensive line units in the NFL. James Cook having the successful year that he has, NFL rusher, what Josh Allen was able to do. Also, Elijah Vera Tucker, extremely talented, extremely talented. Both him and Jenkins are extremely talented guards. Both, like those two dudes, you look at injuries that have played a significant role in them not being on the field and maybe not having that security in the NFL because of the long-term money that teams maybe are scared to attach to those players. But Houston, listen, if they could get either of those guys, get them down here to Houston. The taxes in Texas are a little bit different. Under Cole Popovich, we got a great training facility right here in Houston. This would be my pitch. We have a great training facility. You're in Texas. You're in Houston. We have a great offensive line coach. Look what he's been able to do for the likes of Ed Ingram, bringing along Ariante Ursary as a rookie. Medical center is right here. Like, this would be a great place for either of those young men to revamp their career. If there's any of those players that want to revamp their career and show what they can do, I think it's Teven Jenkins. I really do. But the biggest lesson learned in 2025 for me, it is for you guys to stick around. More Locked On Texans talk on the other side.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to stay locked into every moment than with PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. With football season coming down to its final stretch, now is the perfect time to close it out strong. PrizePicks makes watching the game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around player projections. No draft, no waiting, just football action all the way through the playoffs into the Super Bowl. PrizePicks is incredibly easy to get started. Pick two or more players and choose more or less on their projections. Love being able to mix stars from different teams and build lineups that fit how you watch the game. You may be looking out for Drake May, and you may be looking out for JSN, but you also may need Braun to go off tonight, right? You may need Luka to get you a triple-double. You can do all of that over on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks is good to be right. Closing out this episode Tuesday. Let's reflect a little bit, right? As we go into the 2026 offseason, everybody has a player that they want. Everybody has a position group that they want. Everybody has a change that they like to see. And that's smart. That's how functional franchises continue to stay ahead of the curve, making necessary changes when things are needed to be changed. And I get it. So I say all of that to say for the 2025 season, the biggest lesson learned is Houston they just, the lesson learned is don't be cheap when it can bite you in the butt later. Pay the fee when you need to pay the fee, because if that problem gets worse, it's going to cost you down the line. What am I saying? To this day, didn't understand Houston signing Laken Tomlinson. Didn't understand Houston going to get Cam Robinson. Why do I say that? At neither position are those players better than Titus Howard. You draft Ariante Ursary for left tackle. Excuse me. Titus Howard has shown the ability to be a right tackle in the NFL. And also, he's much better at tackle than he is at guard. And I think when he fills in that guard, we just continue to commend Titus Howard for being a team player. But it's unfair to him to always have to switch back and forth when he probably wants to get paid. And Houston has taken care of him as a guard, no doubt about it. I think next season he's going to get $27 million, which would be what, tops in the NFL in terms of guard money. But moving forward, like at guard, he's never going to be a Pro Bowler. He's never going to be an All-Pro. At tackle, he has a shot. But they still have an issue going into another year. They have an issue with offensive line. And this could be a lesson for 23, for 24, where it gets a little bit different for 25 is they made the change for the coach. They kept the same approach for bringing in the players, who they brought in. And I think when we look at the woes of this team directly from 2025, CJ Stroud is going to get 90% of the blame for that loss against the Patriots. Rightfully so for a lot of people. But when your offense is only able to produce 8 yards in 12 carries, that is a glaring problem. And you're going about this without Joe Mixon, who in 2024, the run blocking scheme wasn't great at all. At times, it wasn't good at all. Joe Mixon is just the ultimate eraser of issues. But Houston played around last offseason. They opted to sign a Nick Neiman. They opted to Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson. They opted to do that. Now, I was against Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram, better coaching, better production, right? But that is what the Houston Texans opted to do. They played, excuse me, and there were players out there. Kevin Zitler was available. Patrick McCarry was available. That's from the 2025 guard free agent class. Like Houston could have figured it out. They could have did a better job of looking at the issues and assessing them. And this takes me back to when Nick Caserio was asking the press conference by the fans, about the worry or the state of the offensive line, and he kind of just shucked away at it. Yeah, we're not worried about it. You guys shouldn't be worried about it either. That is what Nick Caserio opted to do. And so, again, for me, it's all about, for the Houston Texans, fix the problem when the problem arises. Don't mess around with it. Don't play around with it. Don't think that the issue can't get worse. You had guys available like Coleman Shelton last year who ended up going to LA, went back to LA, excuse me. And so he has some familiarity there with the inexperienced offensive play caller and Nick Caley at center. Spent some time with him for a couple of seasons. So, like, things like that would have been smart. Houston opted to go with Jake Andrews. And Jake Andrews had moments here and there, but he was a problem all year for the most part. Houston ignored a leaky roof, and then they had to Now they're having to pay for the repair of the whole ceiling. That's the problem. That was the lesson learned last year in 2025. And hopefully Houston does not do it again. Do not neglect the issues again. Thank you for watching the Locked On Texans podcast today. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12 and on YouTube, or on Instagram, at Some Sports Guy. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans across the nation, tune in for Tuesday Squad Show. Peace.